Welcome everyone to CRE Unplugged. I'm your co-host Nadine Ezzi, joined by my better half in the podcasting world, Ryan Elazari. Ryan, what's going on, brother? I don't know why I feel like it's been a minute since you and I have done one of these on our own.
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's always great to see your face, and I'm really excited for this episode.
Yeah, thanks, man. So you and I have got some changes going on. So you just recently left Manhattan. You were born and raised in the city and recently made the big move to Long Island, or should I say Port Washington. How's it going being a man and family of the burbs, so to speak?
The transition has actually been really good. I'm surprised in how I've been able to adapt so quickly and taking in the nature, and I've been sleeping better, sleeping earlier, which isn't my forte. I'm more of a night owl.
You are a night owl, man. You're sleeping
Yeah.
earlier. I didn't know that.
Yeah, sleeping earlier and just taking in everything that nature has to offer. It's been pretty nice.
You know what? That's a sign that you're in the right place. You know, that's a good sign that yeah, and it's good for the kids. They're getting older and they're going to have, more freedom to run around and things like that. So I'm happy for you guys. I'm glad it's working out so well. I know you were worried about leaving the
I
city.
was a bit worried. My friends are worried about me, but they've called, they've asked, and I've confirmed that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
So
No, you
I'm
seem to
happy
be
about that.
thriving. I know. I'll never
Yeah.
forget when you asked me what it's like to live in a house. You're like, Nadine, you're from Ohio. What's it like to live in a house?
Yeah, definitely a change, but having more space is
Yeah.
something you can't compete with right now.
No, that's nice. That's so nice, especially for the family as your family's growing. Yeah. I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm in the process. I've been traveling so much over the last, I don't know, 18 months that it just, I got to the point where I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to have my own place for the time being. So I'm in the process of becoming a digital nomad for a little bit. If I turn this background off, you would see a half empty apartment because I'm selling everything and just going to be a digital nomad for a bit. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, I've kind of been living out of a suitcase since last November. To be honest with you, it's kind of wild. I don't remember what it's like to not be doing that. So yeah, we'll see where it takes me. So, but I'm excited. Speaking of travel, I'm going to see you in Las Vegas in about 5 weeks for Blueprint. Very excited to be heading back. Last year was a blast, a smashing success. We're going to be heading back, recording the podcast again, seeing out some of our old friends and new friends. Yeah, and I can't wait. Hard to believe that it's just around the corner.
It's definitely hard to believe. I can't believe it's almost a year when
I
we
know.
were out there, but it's such a great conference. We get to meet some really interesting and innovative people in the industry. And yeah, Vegas, I was there for a week. It was taxing, but I love it out there.
You stayed behind last year.
I stayed behind, and there's a plan to might stay behind again for this time. So we'll see. We'll see if I
Uh,
recover as well as I did last time.
yeah. All right. Here's hoping. Here's hoping. But you know what? I'm looking forward to today's conversation, even though you may no longer live in New York City. There's a lot to talk about. And so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like it's good to take a moment to talk about why this episode is so timely.
Mhm. So for that reason, I don't know. I just feel like I can't open the real estate news anymore without seeing something about New York City. It's facing some massive shifts right now between the push for sustainability, the pressure to convert outdated office stock, challenge of keeping the city livable and economically competitive. And at the center of all that is Rebney, the Real Estate Board of New York. And that's why we're so excited to bring on today's guest, who will also be speaking at Blueprint.
Sandhya Espitia is the Chief Operating Officer of Rebney, which is a trade association representing a $1.4 trillion industry and also holds 14,000 members. She's helping to lead the charge on everything from policy and innovation to public perception, fighting outdated narratives, and making the case for real estate to be a civic partner. Her perspectives, Nadine, I think, is really what we need right now.
I agree with you. She's definitely, for the reason being, she's definitely got her finger on the pulse of what it takes to move this industry forward in one of the most complex markets in the world. So with that, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Sandhya Espitia, Chief Operating Officer at Rebney. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. Great to be here.
Welcome. We're so excited for this conversation.
I am as well.
Yeah, I would love to talk about your journey. You immigrated to the US and now you're the operational heartbeat of Rebney, representing 14,000 members. It's really inspiring. So, looking back, what were the key moments that shaped your path and how did it guide you to where you are today?
So I was born in Colombia, South America, and growing up in a developing country is good training for life. We had a lot of issues, government, infrastructure, systems, and they don't always work. So I grew up with a lot of lack of safety, lack of security, and Colombia is a very complex place. We faced political instability, a lot of inequality, and deep issues with the national economy back in the 90s when we had the drug cartels to be, shaping everything we did, including taking over parts of the country. So growing up in Colombia, South America in the 90s was not for the faint of heart. And I moved to the States in 2000, so that's about 25 years ago. And I feel that I've been really blessed academically, personally, and professionally. I've worked with great people. I've learned a great deal of things, but just functioning in a different place was difficult. And, I had to build trust from scratch when I came to this country. I function in a different language. I decoded new systems and I had to prove that I belong. So that happened not by mimicking others, but by owning my own perspective. And I'm big on uniqueness, identity, and understanding your own value and what you bring to the table. So fast forward, that was about 8 years ago. I joined Rebney and I started looking at different ways to shake things up and dove right in and started changing conversations around operation systems and people. And we've been transforming this place effectively, and we're still doing that. I have a drive for innovation. I love change. I come from change. And I think that has guided me through every leadership role I've had throughout my career. And it's also a great way to sort of like steer the ship here at Rebney and the work that we do for 14,000 members. I think that Colombians and New Yorkers have a lot in common. We're really bold, we're creative, we take risks. I love a good risk. And that's what sort of like brings commonality to the table and my ability to contribute to a place that is making New York City better.
I love that
Well,
story.
yeah, well, nothing says New York like change and risk, which is what you just mentioned.
That's right.
Sandia, what inspired you to come to the United States 25 years ago?
It was the late 90s. Things were really bad. Both of my parents, they're now retired, very accomplished professionals, and we just wanted a different life. My parents are
Mm.
divorced. My dad lives in Colombia still, and my mom married my stepdad. They've been married for over 30 years, I think, and he's American, and we felt that it was time to move. So I came to the States and I started college all over again at age 23. And
Wow.
I had a suitcase and probably like $500 in my pocket. I got a scholarship. I worked as a lifeguard. I worked at the library at school. And I was always thinking that there wasn't anything for me to lose. So I love a good risk. I love a good challenge. And it was just the desire to have a different life and to live in a different place and to speak a different language and to learn about a new culture. It was all exciting. It was change and it was all positive. And we were in a position to do that. So I feel really blessed that I was able to to move here. And now I have a beautiful family and a daughter who's, Colombian American, born right here on 58th Street in New York City. And, we celebrate where we come from. But I think it was definitely a drive to see a new world, a new life, and conquer new dreams and do completely different things.
I would say that succeeding in the New York City real estate industry takes perseverance and grit. And like you said, is not for the faint of heart. And I can't really think of any better traits that are usually embodied by immigrants. So I almost feel like, despite the fact that your path wasn't necessarily always clear for you, I don't know. I feel like it's somehow led you to exactly where you are right now. And you're so fitting for that. So speaking of that, in your role as Chief Operating Officer at Rebney, you are the operational engine behind a $1.4 trillion industry in New York City that's working to make the city livable, competitive, and just plain workable. What is the part of Rebney's mission that you think the public still doesn't fully get or appreciate?
We, as the real estate community, are not always perceived as a positive force. And that is a real challenge because that's not the facts, right? So when you look at the 80s, back then, and I've been told these stories, but our incredible members and developers, they would call the mayor of the city to pay their taxes early to make sure the city could function and pay for essential services. And that was an incredible partnership between the industry and local government. Rebney is not only an industry group. We are a civic partner for the city, but we're only an extension of New York City real estate. They are the real partners for New York City. And what people don't see is that we work behind the scenes. We have the data, we have the energy, we put in the time, and really knowledgeable people from the industry to come up with solutions for the collective. So this is just not an industry trying to build more, high luxury buildings. It's an industry that really cares about New York City. And I think what I want people to know is that we're not here to build another skyscraper. We are here to advocate for solutions around housing, around sustainability, about access to listing data, about best practices, about safety, about partnering with local government and being really thoughtful about solutions for everybody. And that's something that every single New Yorker should know. The partnership and the commitment that comes from the real estate industry is not to be underestimated.
You mentioned a throwback to the 1980s when developers would pay their taxes early in an attempt to keep the city going during times of financial need. Do you feel that today in New York City, that level, the public-private relationship is as strong as it was back in the 80s? And if not, what do you think it would take to kind of get us back to that level of partnership and trust?
I think we continue to work on it. We are always ready to work with local and state government. We have an incredible team of professionals. We have great members as well who are very strong brains and solution oriented. So we come to the table. We have a very trusted environment here at Rebney where we are looking at the data and we're looking at the actual issues and how we can move the needle. I don't know how we lost that sense of partnership between the 80s and now 2025. I think there's a political shift as well. There've been a lot of externalities affecting, of course, the relationship between New York City real estate and New York City government. But we are always ready and willing to work with government because when we look at the locally gathered taxes in New York City, about 53% come from real estate. So it is really hard to imagine a city without support, commitment, and passion coming from the real estate community. And We are really committed to getting back to that. We're committed to letting people understand that developers are not just building luxury towers, they're investing in infrastructure, they're investing in housing, they're investing in public spaces where children play, where people take breaks from work. And many are deeply committed to the city's future. We need to shift that narrative from villains to partners in progress here in New York City. And I think we're doing a good job at pushing for that every single day. We are always ready, willing, and educated to come to the table with viable solutions that are good for the collective. And it is a challenging political environment right now. So we are navigating that complexity as well.
Yeah, you bring
Excellent.
up this challenging time, and New York City real estate is very complex, and there's a lot of intricacies that go on with all of it. So, with your experience, what was a recent win or even a loss that taught you how to move the industry forward?
We are dealing with the Fair Act in New York State, and it was enacted this year. And it's a new law that makes it very difficult for agents in New York to collect their commission for the work that they do. So we sued the city, and we are in the middle of litigation right now. We believe that all agents in New York should be compensated for their work. They should be able to advertise listings and communicate to consumers what the inventory looks like to fit their needs. And they should be able to go back to consumers or the landlord to collect their fee because the work that they do is it's a service to consumers, just the way any other industry works when providing a service. So we stand by it. We believe that they should be compensated for their work. They're hardworking New Yorkers, and it has been challenging to navigate that with the public narrative right now in New York City, where some people believe that agents should not be compensated, that all they do is open the door and then they collect a fee. That's not true. We are demystifying that misconception, and we're educating people on the fact that there's a lot of work that happens. Consumers need agents, agents need consumers. Everybody's part of the ecosystem. And we have great opportunities for rentals in New York City. It's a really tight market, but I mean, consumers cannot understand what the inventory looks like under this law because the agents are not able to freely communicate to consumers and share what the listing inventory looks like. So it has a lot of issues. It has raised rents because the landlords will have to bake in the cost of the agent's fee, and therefore consumers are seeing an increase in rents. And it has also lowered the inventory that's visible to consumers because agents are no longer able to freely and publicly share that inventory unless they have already a deal with the landlord. So it's really shrinking the market. It's horrible for consumers. And this is not a win yet, but this is something that we're very invested in. We have a lot of people behind this with great ideas that, again, are good for the collective. And we have a great case. We believe that we're here standing for fairness, and agents are also New Yorkers. Agents are also renters, and they deserve to be paid for the work they do. So that gives me a lot of excitement. I get an adrenaline rush when we talk about it. I am hopeful that we will get somewhere with this litigation. And is it complex? Yes, it is. There's a lot of different players and parties against this. But we continue to fight, and we continue to do what we believe is best for the industry and for New York City.
I'm really glad you brought this up because it is a big misconception, and there's a lot of friends of mine who have been affected by this, including my sister who has her own boutique real estate firm, and she actually had renters who before the Fair Act was passed, they were trying to actually get out of paying her a commission because they were saying that they weren't moving in but until after the Fair Act was being passed. So she had to deal with all of that. And then also she was telling me that landlords are now more inclined to rent the spaces on their own because they don't want to take on the cost of having a real estate agent. So it's definitely something that needs to be educated upon the masses to show them that they're just not opening a door and showing them an apartment. It goes more into that, which is what you addressed.
Exactly. And we stand by it. We have about 130 licensees in the state of New York, and a lot of them do rentals across the state and across New York City. And we want to make sure that they get paid for the work they do. They're hardworking New Yorkers. We're talking about 130,000 people that might not have that income anymore. And that's a serious issue. That's not great for the economy, and that's not great for society. We want people to do well, and we want people to be paid fairly for the work they do.
Sandia, I'm going to do a little bit of a shift in our questioning. We are CRE Unplugged, so we not only cover the dirt side of things, but the innovation and tech side of things. And so um, you have said that 98% of real estate technology fails in New York City, not because the tech itself is inherently bad, but because the tech vendors don't take the time to establish the trusted relationships. And you said very much that New York City is a relationship business. It's slow because you need to establish those relationships. What advice would you give startups that are trying to break into the New York City real estate market?
Yeah, and I want to clarify, it's 95% of the startups that I meet with, they pitch me and they have a new product, and then a year later they never went to market, or they had a concept and they got some funding but they didn't get any traction. The product wasn't sticky enough, and then they're out of business a year later. So within the ecosystem, because I lead technology at Rebney, and we have a technology committee as well that's really involved, and we speak nationally at different conferences. We receive a lot of people here who are very interested in showing the solution they're bringing to the marketplace. And we meet with them, and a lot of them have incredible concepts. A lot of them have a great idea, but they don't know the players.
Mm.
And some of them make it. And then you see, accelerators, of course, here in New York City, that are really well established to support those viable ideas that are going to market and are going to be, reaching adoption across New York City. And those are great cases. But within the universe that I lead, I sit down with a lot of startups, and it's really disappointing to see that they're leading with the pitch, but they're not leading with listening to the
Mm.
actual community, to the actual market, to know what's really needed, right? So real estate is a trust market. If you don't understand the why behind a building's, owner who's being resistant for whatever reason to adopt a technology, you'll never get past the front door. So the tech is not the actual issue, is the relationships, the lack of relationships. And my advice is for them to come and solve the human problem first, and then know that the system will follow. And that's when you start creating a product. But, we've met with so many out of town startups, I think over the past 18 months, that want to be the next aggregator for New York City. Well, there's already a number of aggregators in New York City, and have you studied the market share? Because it's a really crowded space right now. What are you doing about this? And they have no idea. They're really passionate about their ideas, and they're really passionate about their product, but they don't know how to scale, how to go to market, and how to get in front of the right people to at least start like testing those ideas. So what we worry about is their ability to be in business in the next 5 years. You
Mhm.
have an incredible stock, very old stock of buildings in New York City with a lot of challenges, a lot of complexities. And you're trying to provide a solution through a product that those buildings will need in perpetuity, right? After many, many iterations, of course, that product will be needed for X, Y, and Z reason. And you're coming to New York City with an idea and with some funding and no relationships and no clarity about how to do that. People don't want to take a risk. The main developers don't want to take that risk because you don't know if they're going to be in business. You don't know if they're going to be fully knowledgeable of, local and state laws to be compliant with what they need to be compliant with. So the complexities in New York City are real. People always make fun of us when we say, it's a different planet, it's a different bubble. It is. It is. The complexities are very, very unique. So what we advise startups is to really understand the problem, from a systemic standpoint, from a policy standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, from a sustainability standpoint. And that's a really long journey. And I think the ones that are very thorough and well-funded are those who have been able to do that effectively. But it's really sad to see incredible ideas there coming through the pipe, but only a few of them make it in New York City. Vertical markets are very complex, and while we're here to provide clarity, and of course we want innovation and we want competition and we want people to come in, bring real solutions to our buildings, we also need to manage risk and make sure that they have the right solutions and they have the right trust and credibility from decision makers. They have the appropriate capital in place. They have the infrastructure to scale, and they have the right resources and people who actually open doors for them from one developer to another because their product is viable and is sustainable and is scalable and is, really solving issues that developers can now solve with internal teams. So it's complex. There's opportunity, but it's a very tight market when you look at those who actually made it and are, engaging with sticky products that are solving real issues.
Sandia, I think what you touch upon is what I call this great fallacy of tech innovation, where more often than not, founders and startups forget that it's not 80% tech, 20% people. It's actually the inverse, really, right? I'd say it's 80% about people and 20% about the technology or the tool itself, right? It's about building those relationships. It's about earning trust. It's about understanding your end users and their actual problems so that you can take all of that and incorporate that into your strategy for change management or adoption or whatever that is. And then the tool, which is just as important, but it's worthless if you don't really take the time to build that foundation as it relates to the actual end users and who you're trying to solve for. And then couple that with the fact that you guys are in New York City, I think it becomes even more imperative. So very well said in describing that. I'm so glad that you touched upon that.
Are there any tech solutions currently that you're bullish on?
I can't really endorse any product from where I sit. I'm told I need to be Switzerland when it comes to that. But what I have learned from my work with CTOs and CIOs across owner companies here in New York City is that integration of systems continues to be a nightmare. So you have buildings with legacy technology, you have new systems for access control and security, you have your building management system, and you have other ways to track tenants and their behavior. And they don't come as one beautiful unified system. They come in many pieces, and then you have to fully integrate all of them or layer them on top of each other to make sure that you can actually do something with the data that you're collecting and information that you're getting from those systems. So that is an issue. If we could have a solution that would beautifully integrate what's needed today and what's needed in the next 10 years, we would be making progress. And when it comes to sustainability with Local Law 97, there's a lot of concern about reporting, of course, but also being compliant. But the reality is that you have the Class A buildings that some of them will probably be compliant, others won't be compliant. I mean, we have these meetings, and even buildings that are LEED certified might not be compliant. So they're working towards that. And the issue is with the Class B and Cs who, that's still a question. How do we deploy technology and innovation that we're applying to Class A buildings to, Bs and Cs to make sure that everybody's sort of like playing, in an equal field. So I think those two are the main issues: sustainability, of course, and compliance through technology and solutions, and also, finding a way to unify and fully integrate systems that work and tell one cohesive story and insights for developers to continue to innovate. When you think about New York City, about 4 out of 5 buildings were built before the mid 70s. So we have old stock, we have old systems in place, and capital plays a very important role here. You're trying to maintain and innovate, working with assets that are aging and continue to have a lot of infrastructure issues. So anything behind building technology is very important to our community here. The sustainability of those services as well, knowing that they're going to be in business in the next 5 to 10 years. That's really, really important. And these are real estate people. We are competitive in nature, right? You want to lead with the next wave of innovation to attract more tenants and to retain the tenants that you already have. And a lot of our developers are really getting creative about the tenant experience and how you improve that specific concept. Back in 2021, 22, it was about your office looking more like a home because you're working from home, and now you want to be in the office, and we want you in the office because we want retail to do well. We want infrastructure in the city. We want the economy to do better. We need people to be in offices, and collaboration happens in the office, right? And a lot of innovation conversations, there's research about this, that they happen in the office. So when they're investing in systems that work, systems that they're bullish on, they're also thinking about, how do I become the most attractive place and landlord for current and future tenants in New York City? So it's a big challenge. You're working with, how do I build my infrastructure? How do my systems work so I can serve as a tenant effectively today? But well, wait a minute. How do I start iterating from this so in the next 5 years I can have X, Y, and Z and lead the way, when it comes to innovative and adaptive office space. So those are that, and that's why, going back to the conversation about who makes it technology wise and who doesn't in New York City, this is the environment and the ecosystem we have to work with.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned all the key players in all this. I mean, of course, residents need that experience and feel like they're being catered to, so that landlords and tenants are in communication with each other. And I do think there's a lot of technology out there that's looking into that. There could be a lot more improvement there. But I want to go back to the sustainability front. You talked about Local Law 97. That's a subject that Nadine and I have talked a lot about on this podcast. But, in terms of the B and C class properties, they're not going to have the funding, as you said, to be able to take care of a lot of the conservation measures that's required of them. So how quickly do we need to create more innovation solutions so that they could be able to do that? What really is the key?
Innovation is in place, and they started reporting already. So whether you are compliant or not, you're already reporting, you'll get fined if you're not compliant and so forth. The issue here is, I mean, what really matters is what happens between now and 2030, and then from 2030 to 2050 when we reach carbon neutrality. But I think we have um, a tier of issues here. You have the newer buildings that are going through this. You have the older buildings going through the same process, and you have reporting responsibilities, and you have compliance, and you have technology sort of like powering the whole process. At the same time, you have the aging buildings, regardless of, whether you're class A or B, you can still have an aging building. So I do think that we are running and we're almost like flying and building the plane at the same time. And that's what we hear from the industry, is trying to figure out all the variables that are part of the process. You need to think about tenant occupancy, you need to think about density, you need to think about, how you work the systems to work at full capacity when you have a full office with people and less capacity on a Sunday. You don't have to power and chill the building when no one's in the office. Like, we're getting really smart about shifting and working through our systems to ensure that we're saving energy and adapting to office density. But I don't really think there's an answer more than you have to be compliant, unfortunately. And our teams work with regulators, and we work with the CEOs, the CIOs, and the CTOs around these issues, and the COOs as well around these issues. And people are scratching their head, and time will tell. The most important thing is that the industry is fully committed to sustainability. We understand that it is essential for the city, especially when over 70% of gas emissions come from the built environment. We understand that responsibility. How we get to that continues to be a question. The high-performing buildings will do better. The not so great performing buildings will be affected and might not be compliant, and we're going to have to deal with that. But it's a process, and everybody's learning in the process, and everybody's working with technology and building management systems to have the right checks and balances in place. But it's not a clear answer. We're, as I say, you know, we're flying and building the plane at the same time. And it is very important to New York City. It's generational sustainability. We do understand that, but it's not a straight answer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and I think with all that you said, there has to be a way where the government agencies can understand that the owners are trying their best to comply, but there might be a need for, the deadlines to get pushed. As long as they're seeing a lot of these owners are taking the time and the efforts to comply with the different measures.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's more collaboration now um, between local government and the industry when it comes to providing feedback and input on what's working and what would work in order to be compliant. And that's really important. One of my colleagues leads the sustainability committee, and they're very involved in those conversations. But what we see from the tech side is that the Class A buildings that have better infrastructure and better building management systems will have a better chance. And that's just what the data shows. The question continues to be, how do we deploy innovation and technology from those buildings to Class B and C buildings.
So Sandia, you mentioned generational efforts. So Rebney monitors over 2,000 bills annually, works with generational family firms, and leads efforts on diversity and inclusion. How do you balance honoring that tradition with the generational family firms as well as nudging the industry forward?
You have to respect tradition. New York City real estate it's special because of that. And the folks who have built New York City skyline are just exceptional. And you see these generational businesses and incredible passion from generation to generation. And most importantly, a very strong commitment to our city. So I think that's the foundation of what we do. And at the same time, we want the industry to be more diverse when it comes to leadership, and we're working on that. We have a team here that leads our social impact work for the industry in New York City because we believe that the industry should mimic the faces of New York. We have incredible diversity, which we actually do in our industry, incredible diversity. There's incredible migration from like 200 years ago from families that came here. 300 years ago, they bought one building and then they took off from there. And those stories are just phenomenal. I find that to be so fascinating. So I think there's room for a lot of innovation, of course, within that foundation. And there's definitely room for newcomers and more diverse populations to start, shaping the future of those organizations. And we see that happening already. We work with companies to do internships, youth employment program with the city, and other entry points to ensure that we're supporting the underrepresented communities that have a voice and that really sharp and have something to offer and will be at the table one day because they bring a different perspective to it. So we're committed to that entire picture, a picture that celebrates, honors, and continues to work closely with the generational tradition of New York City, but also the new generations that are really practical, not necessarily well connected yet, and that need to be part of this for the industry to fully mimic the taxonomy of New York City. So we lead with both. We lead with respect for what's really established and also opportunity for what's not established just yet.
I think that's a wonderful way of describing holding two truths at the same time. I think more often than not in our current day and age, discourse tends to be very binary, right? It's either or, right? We either move forward full speed ahead with DEI efforts, leaving behind and discarding what we've built upon in tradition or whatnot, or we hold on so tightly and so desperately to what has been. And I think that's a very eloquent way of stating that we must hold space for both. To be able to move forward. And frankly, working in the built environment is, I find it a privilege because it is in fact a reflection of our values as a people. Right. And very well said. Very well said, Sandia.
And we're a very welcoming city. I feel more at home in New York City than I feel in Colombia when I visit, because here is just you can be yourself. And you can celebrate your uniqueness, and you know that you're different, and that is actually cool. And the experiences and the expertise and everything that you bring to the table, they're just you. You don't have to be like anybody else. Everybody else is taken already. So I love the fact that I'm a great example of that, along with a lot of peers here at Rebney. We lead the most influential real estate trade association in New York City. We're almost 130 years old. And here I am, the first COO, a woman of color who migrated from Colombia, 25 years ago, and I get to have a seat at the table and interact with these incredible people that have built New York City's skyline. That is a testament of our intention for the industry, right? An industry that supports diversity of thought, supports newcomers, supports people who do really good work, who are bullish, who are innovative, who are bold. And we come in all shapes and colors. It's not always the same people that we're used to. And that's a very important shift for us and for elected officials also to see that, I am also real estate. I'm also New York City real estate. Yeah, I'm a Colombian American, yes, and I'm a woman of color, but I'm also real estate. And and that really helps to sort of like shape the narrative. When the messenger looks more like the taxonomy of our city, we we can establish deeper relationships and we can be more relatable. And there are ways to do that. But I do think that the real estate industry is incredibly welcoming. They're very collaborative. They believe in good work and trusted relationships and great capital and great opportunities for New York City. And frankly, even though I work for Rebney, which is a nonprofit trade association, I have those same, goals and intentions and dreams for our city. And I happen to be a Colombian American who immigrated 25 years ago, and I get to tell the story too, and that's valid. So yeah, making room for everybody really matters. And real estate is here to stay. It's not that you just pick up a building and move it across the river because you're just not happy with how things are going here. Like you're here long term. You're thinking about the next 100, 200, 300 years. You're committed to the city. You know that you're part of the ecosystem. So the level of commitment is completely different from what you see coming from other industries.
Preach Sandia. I want to go to the Church of Sandia. And if Rebney doesn't have merch yet, I feel like you guys should start with a t-shirt that says, I am also New York City real estate.
I love that.
Well, that's you. That's you, Sandia.
Yes,
that's you,
that would be
right?
so cool. Yes.
So
We're not bad people here. We actually care so
wouldn't
much
that be
about the
cool? All these
community.
different people wearing
That'll
this
be so
t-shirt
cool.
saying, I am, right? A lot of merch ideas are born on this podcast.
Yeah, I know. We got
I
to
love
start. We
that.
got to start. We got to start
Give
making
me a
them.
hat. I
I
love
love
that.
that. I'll be the first one to order it. So yeah.
I'll probably get it and wear it in Vegas in September. We'll see.
Ooh, okay. Okay. I love it.
Yeah, I would love. We definitely want to talk about Blueprint, but something that I really would love to hear from you, and I know and it can't be about the Fair Act because we've already covered that. But fill in the blank. What is the biggest threat to New York City real estate right now?
Governance.
Mm,
And when you have effective governance at the local, state and federal level, I think you find alignment across common concerns.
mm,
It's a year of mayoral elections.
mhm.
We are watching that. We will be ready to collaborate, be a civic partner, and work with any mayor that's elected because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what the industry does. The industry believes in New York City and is here for New York City. And I think on the policy side, we want a city that's more affordable. And of course, we're making progress with housing production, with City of Yes. We still have a ways to go when it comes to that. There's going to be conversions as well from commercial to residential to create more housing. We want the city to be affordable so we can have people who wouldn't come to New York City otherwise. We need artists, we need teachers, we need creatives, we need, all kinds of talent, personalities, and profiles to be part of the city that makes it more interesting every single day. And for that, you need affordability.
Mm.
So that's important to us. Our members are committed to that. Building affordable housing is very, very top of mind to a lot of our members. Building community, building infrastructure, having people back in offices is really important for the economy because we live in a networked effect. We have offices, but you need restaurants around you, you need coffee shops, you need places to meet people and so forth. And that creates jobs. And the vitality of the city really depends on that networked effect of affordability, people coming back to the office, building connections, raising families, and so forth. So I think we need really good governance and thoughtful policy as well that is pro-economic development. Put New York
Mm-hmm.
City real estate aside, it's really pro-economic development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's challenging. Safety is also a concern to some people, and that needs to be addressed. Since 2020, we've had some issues around safety and mental health crisis that we are all dealing with. But it's a city as well. It's a city that welcomes everybody. It's a city that has public transportation, infrastructure issues, people migrating from other parts of the world and the country. And for that, you need good alignment and really good governance from the public and private sector to make sure that we land at this common place where we're actually building together and we're partners in progress. And the end goal here is to have a New York City that is well run, has opportunity, it's affordable, has enough housing for everybody, feels safe. You can raise a family, you can work, you can play, you can get a job right after college and succeed here, which a lot of people do. So the stakes are really high for New York City. We're a vertical market with a lot of infrastructure complexity and social complexity and then political complexity. So it layers sort of like on top of each other. But bottom line is definitely, having a city that has enough housing, and most importantly, housing is affordable to all.
Yeah, I think the affordability crisis is real, and I'm really glad you mentioned that because it's definitely on top of mind. And if we can build more affordable housing to help with that, and to also help people who want to be in New York City and not have to, work two jobs in order to survive in the city, I think that's really important right now.
Right. Agree.
So, Sandia, you gave a little preview about Vegas. We know that you're speaking at Blueprint this September. We'll be there as well. We're excited to see you. So, what topic are you going to be covering, and what are you excited about sharing with the audience?
We are covering the future of the future, and we have an incredible group of people with amazing brains that are going to be on the panel, and they're going to be talking about not only the issues that we're dealing with here in New York City, but sort of like what's the future of those issues? Are we thinking about new issues that will come at us as a result of those issues? Are we thinking about new solutions that are going to like put those issues to sleep and then create new issues? And it's really aligned with the conversation about innovation and AI. People keep asking about AI and how it's really disrupting the industry and entering the market and so forth. And we use it every day. We've been dealing with AI for a number of years. When we talk to our technology committee members, they've been incorporating it, throughout their systems for a long time, and they've been prompting models and generating a lot of data and insights that are informing strategic decisions. So it is really ingrained in what we do. I think the biggest question is around robotics, automation of different tasks like construction tasks and so forth. Sort of like the things that were unthinkable 10 years ago. So the group is going to be talking about that as well. And we're really excited. We're ready to share knowledge about New York City and what our questions are and what our lessons have been over the past 5 years. We will be there for the second time. Last year was very successful. We had 2 panels and they were really well received. So we're looking forward to a great conference this year.
Well, we can't wait for that panel and also for our t-shirts. Hint, hint. Sandia, this has been such a delightful conversation. We want to wrap it up with one final question for you. So when you're not wrangling mayors, policies, and 14,000 Rebney members, how do you, Sandia, outside of Rebney, unplug?
I like to walk a lot. I love cities. We travel internationally. That's sort of like one of my passions. I have a daughter, and my husband and I are fully aligned when it comes to unplugging. So I treat unplugging as a strategy. I make time for it, make room for it, make sure that I'm fully present for my husband, my daughter. And we do simple things such as, walking from the Upper West Side all the way down to Battery Park on a Sunday, and then stop at different restaurants and coffee shops and then take the subway back. Or we're going to Tokyo this summer, and we're also going to explore. We love mega cities. We're big city people. So it's really walking and plugging. I have great friends. I think, girlfriends are really important in life. I have an incredible group, of girlfriends,
Yes,
from
they
different
are.
parts of my life. And they sort of like keep me real, and I can be myself with them. And I spend a lot of time with girlfriends as well. But yeah, I love experiences. I love a good walk, a good nap, a good, trip somewhere. And I love swimming in the ocean. I'm a swimmer. I'm a total fish. I jump in. If I'm on a boat, I see a space, that I love, and I'm like, stop right here. I'm jumping in. And that's sort of like the way I function in life. I just jump in and have a good time. So yeah, a lot of play time, I would say, and family time and time with friends.
That's great. I would love to know, what's your average step count per day?
Ooh, ooh.
Well, if I'm traveling, it's about 25,000 a day.
Ooh.
That's a
because
lot.
we walk everywhere. And if I'm in New York, I would say probably 10,000 a day. If I'm not lazy that day and take the bus or take, the subway, I'm usually walking. Like I said, I live in the Upper West Side. I cross the park, and then I come to my office on 51st and Lexington Avenue, and it's a 45-minute walk. Is wonderful. I did it yesterday. So yeah, I walk a lot. I move a lot too. I'm always going places, which is fun, whether it is, by foot or by subway. I'm always moving here. That's the beauty of living in New York City. I don't think I would ever leave this place. I love it. It's home. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next decade.
Well said. Sandhya Espitia, thank you so much for joining us. This was an extraordinary conversation. We thank you for your insight and your love of New York City. It's extremely palpable, and we too are excited to see and learn more about the future of New York City. Sandhya Espitia, Chief Operating Officer of Rebney. Folks, be sure to stay tuned for our recap after this word from our sponsor.
Hey there, CRE Unplugged fam. We would like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the Game Changers over at Hilo, the customer experience platform for buildings that's turning heads in the real estate world.
That's right. Can we talk about how Hilo is transforming the way we manage properties and create unforgettable experiences? Ryan, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Hilo?
Well, Nadine, it's all about reducing friction in property management. Hilo is like the magic wand that makes everything seamless and efficient. Say goodbye to those time-consuming tasks and hello to streamlined operations and communications.
Efficiency is crucial, but what about personalized experiences? Hilo takes it to the next level with a vision to tailor each interaction to the needs and preferences of its customers.
And let's not forget the community aspect. Hilo builds vibrant, connected communities. It's fostering a sense of belonging and togetherness.
Now, here's something that truly sets Hilo apart: their commitment to advancing ESG initiatives. They're not just about buildings, they're about making a positive impact on the environment. That's a win-win for everyone.
So, to our listeners out there, if you're ready to elevate your properties, digitize and enhance customer experience, and maximize satisfaction, Hilo is the answer. Please visit hiloapp.com for more information. That's hiloapp.com. Nadine, so much to unpack with our conversation with Sandia. I really thought that she gave us some really good things for us to think about. One that really struck with me was how she spoke about how most real estate tech in New York fails, not because the tech is bad, but because the trust and relationships aren't there. And that really hits home for me. Having worked at a legacy real estate firm and trying to bring in new tech, I've seen firsthand how success really depends more on who's behind the product than the product itself. And at the end of the day, it's not about speed, it's about building the right partnerships.
Yeah, I'm so happy that Sandia brought this up. Number one, as a non-New Yorker, I think a lot of people have this misconception about New York City that it is a non-people city, right? You guys get this rap that it's just very fast-paced and cold and rude, and that the last thing it could be about is people and relationships and partnerships. And for what I've learned, that's the furthest thing from the truth. And and she's absolutely right. And I think this holds true not just in adoption of technology in New York City, but everywhere, right? If you're an early stage tech startup, especially in Proptech, you're not going to have a fully built out functioning product in your early days. So you're even more so than at any other point in your journey going to have to rely on building relationships and building trust so that your prospective end users or customers can trust, as she said so adeptly, and as so many people have said over and over again, that you're going to be around longer than a year, right? Or you're going to stick around long enough to be able to grow with them and to take their feedback and whatnot. So relationships matter, partnerships matter, trust matters, especially in New York City, on top of anything else. It's such a fast-paced, complex city. And I'm not surprised by any means that owners and operators or anybody else are not going to stop what they're doing and take a chance on something without really having gained that trust, so to speak, in somebody that's trying to build that out. So I'm really, really glad that she raised that, because it holds true across the entire PropTech ecosystem, but especially in a city like New York City.
Well, the ecosystem is quite small, but if we're talking about New York City, it's even smaller. And then you're talking about how your network is your currency, and word of mouth is really the best way for you to be able to get your product out there and for people to even want to bring you in for a demo or even want to pilot your product. So she was spot on with what she spoke about there.
Completely spot on. And I got to see, one of the things that I was so happy to hear from her is how she unapologetically owns her story of being an immigrant. How she compares, growing up in Colombia to not unlike New York City, right? Not very easy, challenging, various obstacles in the way, but she owns that story. And she made it work for her. And I appreciate that so much. I would love to see more of that in our industry, and also how she ties that to, the multifaceted kind of cultural fabric that is New York City, and she, on behalf of Rebney, recognizes that, the built environment, in order to be inclusive as possible, needs to be built for everybody. And that Rebney seeks out, to do that, to recognize that the built environment is for everyone. And so I really, really appreciated not only her sharing her own story of being an immigrant from Colombia and how that helped her kind of forge a path in a city like New York City, but that, she and the folks at Rebney, who are a very diverse team, from what she said, recognize that, it takes different perspectives to be able to build out systems and policies and functions that serve for all. So really, really appreciated that she brought that up.
Oh, 100%. I mean, both our families are immigrants that came to the US, and they've been able to establish themselves in different facets of the United States. And hearing about how she came to New York at a very young age and be able to create a career for herself is very inspiring.
Yeah.
I hope our audience members were inspired by that too. I also, I have to mention this about, it's going to be really interesting how Rebney and the new leadership in 2010-26 is going to be able to work together. I know from experience, the city is unpredictable. It's politically intense, and whoever steps in City Hall next year is going to bring their own agenda, and Sandia will have to navigate that landscape very strategically and carefully, kind of like playing 4D chess. And we know that she's pro-business, we know that she's pro-city, but I think staying data-driven, which is her secret sauce, is going to help her be able to make her case and be able to create a strong relationship with whoever takes the helm in New York City next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that Rebney is so data driven and has been for quite some time will work in their favor and allow them to hopefully remain unbiased despite whoever it is that comes into the next local administration. And she made it clear they're going to work with whoever comes into the administration as well. But having the power of that data behind them, I think will serve them quite well. And it'll be very interesting to see that play out. So and that's just a few short months away.
Well, it's one thing to be open to wanting to talk to someone, but then being able to create change and progress is another
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the data is critical.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, Sandhya Espitia, Chief Operating Officer of Rebney. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. A reminder that Nadine and I will be at Blueprint September 16th to 18th. You can join us and save $300 off your registration by using the link on our website or our link tree.
Yeah, folks, come on out to Vegas. Don't let Ryan stay behind on his own, okay? So let us see you out there. If you've got any questions you want us to answer on air, you can always email us at info@creunplugged.com or reach us on our website, www.creunplugged.com. See you next time, friends. And until then, keep your convos real and unplugged.